Hey, I'm going to show you today a little bit of kind of a introduction to the Remix worksheet so that you have a chance to kind of see what I'm going for, what you need to do. It looks very much like 6.8 and 6.9 in the exercises. The big difference here is with the 6.9 types, numbers 7 through 12, you can mark it up. Okay, I know some of you have a hard time marking in your book anyway. Others are trying to preserve it for resale and all that kind of fun stuff. But for the worksheet, I expect that you're going to circle and underline and color and whatever you got to do, honestly, to make sense of it. And so we're going to walk through things. These are my exercises, so they're out of my little brain. So sometimes they make more sense to me than they do to you. That's okay. Ask. Okay, you guys know the deal. So we're going to do together here. We're going to do number 1 and number 7. If you don't have a copy of the remix, it is up in week 8 on Blackboard in the weekly schedule. I will make sure it's also up under major assignments in with that chapter, in with that Unit 3 study guide and such. So it'll be in there as well. Anyway, we're going to do this in sections. Do yourself a favor and make sure that you're doing the numbers that I ask you to do when I ask you to do them. Don't just sit down and spend a whole day working on this all at once. I'm kind of parsing it out in little pieces so that you can keep it fresh in your head as we get through chapter 7, okay, which is totally different. So anyway, so number 1 says, if P and Q, then R, not Q, therefore P or R. And that's what I have up here, okay? And so we're going to walk through this and do the regular truth table, find out if it's valid or not, and then I'm going to erase and we'll do number 7. And then we'll be done. At least I'll be done. So remix number 1, here's my argument. I go through the same steps. I have 2 symbols on that first premise. I only have 1 in each of the others, so I don't have to worry about them. I have 3 variables, P, Q, and R. And then I have this P and Q here. So I'm going to take it out of my complexity and put it here in my guide. And then each of my premises and my conclusion is going to get its own column in the argument side. So P and Q, then R, not Q, therefore P or R. And that's my whole top line. Okay, not too horrible. Some of the others are obviously a little more complex, but we'll have fun with those. I will be posting a key for your remix stuff after the due date, so you can go back in and check things. So make your best stab and then go back and check and make sure you've got the right answers in there. So I have my normal stuff. 3, oh, excuse me, I'm going to end up coughing on you here, and that would be bad. It's goldenrod season. Lots of allergies. Anyway, PQR. So I have 3 variables, so I need 8 rows. I'm going to use my half and half rule and do 4 by 4. So 4 trues, 4 falses, and then half of 4 is 2, 2 trues, 2 falses. Do that again because I still have space, still have rows left. My R is half of 2, so it's my 1 by 1. And I just keep going true, false until I get to the bottom. And then that's it for those. I put a little line across so that I have a chance of actually keeping things in the right spaces. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Okay. I have to look at this line, P and Q. I'm looking at these first 2 columns only. I'm going to ignore my R. When I'm working on my own, I have a little piece of paper over there, so I don't look at it at all. Tracking across, I'm looking for 2 trues. In my conjunction, I know that the only ones that are true are when I have both of my variables true. If I have any falses whatsoever, it only takes 1, I have a false answer. So I'm looking for my trues. They're first. So I have true and true is true, true and true is true. I have true and false twice, false and true, and then false and false. So my first two in that column are true. Everybody else is false. And that's from these, right? It's coming across. I'm always looking across. Even though I'm filling it out top to bottom, I'm looking at the answer from across. Okay, so I'm filling my matrix that way. The next column, my first premise, is if P and Q, then R. So I have these two columns to work with. Here's my P and Q, here's my R. But they go this way. This is my first variable. R is my second. So my truth value for P and Q together, then my truth value for R. And so I write myself the little note. Okay, and yeah, I use all the colors on my own homework and such to make sure that I have it correct as I can make it based on my own little brain here. So if P and Q, then R. So T, true to true is true, true to false is false. False to true is true, false to false is true. False to true is true, false to false is true, false to true is true, false to false is true. So I have one false in my whole list, okay? And that's because I'm looking from P and Q to R, and that's my only true that matters on that one. Remember, the conditional is the only one that really makes a difference as far as which direction you're going. And so you have to be careful and make sure that you're going the right direction, okay? My next column is not Q, so it's opposite day for my 2 by 2 here. So every place Q is true, not Q is false. So false, false, true, true. Okay, true, true, false, false over here translates to false, false, true, true over here because of my little knot. So, not too horrible. And I should have left that color off for the last. Oh well, we're going to do it twice. Okay, so I have P or R. I'm going to look at this column, and I'm going to look at this column. And they're an OR. The only time an OR disjunction is false is when I have two falses. Okay, so I'm going to look for that, and I'm going to try to get this in the right spot. So true or true is true, true or false is true, true or true is true, true or false is true, false or true is true, false or false is false, false or true is true, false, false or false is false. So I have true, 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 false, true, false. Okay, so that's my whole truth table. Now I get to actually use it. My false conclusions here. And I'm looking to make sure both of them have at least one false premise. Okay, here's this one. He has a false premise there, so ta-da, rather. False here has two true premises. I only have two premises, so no, it's invalid. All that word. Okay, so remix number 1 is invalid. There's your truth table set up, and we're going to move on to number 7. We're going to do some translating, okay? So I've got to find my little eraser. There he is. Okay, make him go away. If you needed that, go back, reverse just a tad. Even on YouTube, it's not too hard to do that. Back up and then pause so you can see it, okay? Okay. I'm going to do number 7 because that's the first one in the word problems, and then we'll see how you do. Again, if you have trouble, if you want more of these done like this, if I get enough numbers for that, I will be more than happy to come do another thing. But it's good. It's all good. So here's my remix, number 7. And I'm going to walk you through what I do on my page so you can kind of see how that works, and I'm going to write some of it out on the board as well. So if we go out in a full moon, then we will behave like lunatics. But many people believe lunatics are no crazier during a full moon than at other times. We are those people that believe lunatics are crazier during the full moon. Therefore, if we go out in a full moon, then we will behave like lunatics. Okay, a little bit of a nonsense thing going on there, but we'll have some fun. What I do first thing is I go through and I mark my sentences, my statements, so that I know what my P's and Q's and maybe R's are. So we go out in a full moon is my P. Okay. Now I'm going to do this a little bit different on the board, so I'm going to walk through this in just a second. We go out in a full moon is my P. We will behave like lunatics is my Q. And then people believe is my R. Remember, I have to be careful not to put the knots in my phrasing here because I want to keep my variables positive. So when I'm going through this, I have, sorry, that's 7, not 1. I have if we go out, and I'm just going to kind of shorthand this. Not that bad. Then we will behave. But we have people believe, well, people don't believe, basically, that people behave like lunatics. When I'm walking through one of these pieces, I will, and I wish I had brought more pens with me or had done this out a little bit better for you, but anyway, if we go out, then we'll behave like lunatics, okay? But many people believe lunatics are no crazier during the full moon than other times, okay? So they don't believe the moon makes any difference, okay? So that's what I have here. People don't believe, ... I'm shorthanding for you. We believe, therefore, if we go out, and I'm going to make this go away here in just a minute, so don't stress too much yet about me getting everything on the board. So if I'm looking at my piece of paper, I go through and I do a few things. Okay, so I mark first my P's and Q's and R's. And I check my knots, okay? So I have my variables already set up, and then I'm going to mark as well my if-thens, okay? Circle my if-thens, circle my ands, but is just another reason for and. Here's another if-then, and here's my therefore, okay? So when I'm walking through these, sometimes they get kind of complex, right? Sometimes our piece here, okay, we have ifs and thens, we have ands, we have ors, we have lots of nots. Sometimes we have some other issues with translating this into standard form. Well, the big deal is getting our variables figured out, and then we have to figure out the structure, right? Where's our if-thens, where's our ors, all of that. Two things I do. Okay, I go through and I circle my things, and then I put little slash marks at the end of every sentence. Anytime there's a period, I put a slash. That way I know how many premises I'm likely to have. But I'm looking for the first word of the next sentence to not be a but or an and or an or. If I have one of those, then I have to kind of reconnect. Refigure. What is it? Recalculating, right? So I'm taking that particular slash out because these two sentences are actually one complete premise, okay? Sometimes you'll also see if this and this, then, okay? So you have to be careful where you're going to put that arrow, okay? That's always a question I get. Well, you put the arrow wherever the then is. Okay? And keep in mind, that's going to be part of your big structure. If you have ands or ors between your if and then, you've got to have that structure in that same order. You can't change it around. So here's my but. If I can change my but to an and not change the sense of the sentence, then that's what I use. If I can't, then I've got to put a not in somewhere. This one already has its not. So my but here is actually an and. Buts and peas, and yeah, you can giggle on your own time, it's okay. So I have my structure already put out on my actual paragraph, and all I have to do is write it out. Okay, so here, if we go out, then we will behave like lunatics. So if P, then Q, and there's my period, right? So that section goes together, and not R. Okay, I would not put my parentheses here and put Q and not R together because I've got a period here. It means these guys are more closely related than they are to this one, but the and connects the two. The next one is just we believe. It's just one variable, right? So that's all I have for my second premise. It's just the R. Then I have my therefore, okay, my dot, dot, dot. If P, if we go out, then we will behave like lunatics, okay? So my whole argument is 3 lines, and it looks like that, okay? So mark your stuff up. If you need to use different colors, great, use different colors. If you're highlighting stuff, that's fine. Whatever works for you to make sure that you have an understanding of what the structure of a paragraph is, great, do that, okay? Some folks don't need a lot of color. I like color, so there it is. I'm going to erase this so I have space to do the rest of to do the actual truth table. So make sure you have that. Pause. Okay. So here's my argument. So I have, in this top line, I have three symbols. Okay, I have to get rid of 2 of them. I have to simplify out 2 of them to make it work for myself. So my second one is just an R. I don't have to do anything with that. My last one just has the arrow. So I'm good. So it's just that top line I have to worry about in my guide. So I have P and Q and R. And then I'm going to take my parentheses out. And I'm going to take my not R out. Okay? Then I'm going to give each of my premises its own column in the actual argument part. Okay? So there's my top line. Now, like I've been saying all along, if you can hold these things in your head and you don't need them in your guide, by all means, okay, leave them out. I need them. I like to write things out, so, okay. So normal stuff, here's my 3 variables. I need 8 rows, half and half, 4 by 4, 2 by 2, and then 1 by 1. Guide line here so I have a chance. Okay, so there's my normal. Looks the same as every other 3 variable truth table we put together so far. If P then Q, using my first 2 columns here, and I'm looking that direction, okay, made my little note. And I'm really looking for the first variable to be true and the second variable to be false, so I have my false statements figured out. Everybody else is true. So I usually just go through and find, here's my false, and then I know everybody else is true. I know everybody else is true because if it's true then true, it's always true. There's 2 of those. If it's false, then true, that's always true. There's 2 of those. If it's false, then false, that's always true, and there's 2 of those. Okay, so whatever works. You're going to say that in law. It's okay. My not R, okay, is riffing off of my regular R and just doing opposite day. Okay. So every place R is true, not R is false. Everywhere R is false, not R is true. Okay? And then I'm going to do the relationship, the and, between these 2 columns. There's my little note. Okay, so if P then Q, take those particular truth values and them to this, okay, the not R's. And I'm looking for any place where both of my statements are true, because those are the only ones that are true in a conditional, in a conjunction, sorry. So I have one here, and I have one here, and I have one at the bottom. Everybody else is false. So false, true, false, 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 true, false, true. Okay? True and true are true. So don't get too ahead of yourself on that. This column is just an R, okay, because here's my premise, it's just an R. So I have to have a column for it here. And it's my 1 by 1. Okay, so true, false, true, false. And then I have my if P then Q. Now, I've already done that. Actually, I'm going to use my little green guy. I did the truth values for if P then Q back here, so my columns have to match. I already know it's true, true, false, false, true, 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 true. So it has to be the same over here. Now you can redo your relationships if you want to, but I've already done them once and that's plenty for me. I just have to be careful to copy the right column. Thankfully, I'm using the same color twice. Okay, so there's my truth table. It's all done. I have to check my false conclusions and make sure that they each have a false premise. Okay. This false conclusion here has a false premise there, so it's okay. This false conclusion has 2 false premises, so it's okay. So it's a valid argument. It's silly, but it's valid. Okay. So that should give you enough to get started on your remix. Let me tell you a couple of other things about it. The next time I do this, my next iteration of this, I will just use P's and Q's in the 1 through 6. So if that's your druthers, you'd rather use P's, Q's, and R's instead of the L's and K's and M's that I have on there, please, by all means, translate those into P's and Q's and R's. Just make sure that whatever you choose, if your L's are P's, then all your L's have to be P, or else you're going to get a different answer than I did. Whatever you do, I will check your answer based on what you do. Okay, that's the other thing about truth tables, even on a test. If you set up your truth table a particular way, if you set up your truth table a particular way, as long as you follow your own guide and you do the relationships correctly, you're going to get nearly all the points. You might lose 1 or 2 as opposed to 40 because you didn't do it like the way I did. Same thing with the missing rows. If you don't need as many rows as I do in my particular truth table, I'm not going to count that against you as long as you've actually held it in your head correctly and you get the right answer. Okay, so do what you can, make your best stab, pop them in on Blackboard, ask me for help, whatever you need to do. Remember, I will be posting keys to the remix after the due date for each of them. So after Thursday, usually Friday morning at some point, I'll post the key for that week so you can go back and look. Okay, so you can check your work more carefully. It's really hard to tell you, oh, on line 3, on row 5, that should be a T instead of an F. So I'll give you a key and you can look at them side by side and make it easier on yourself. So if you have questions, let me know. I'm more than happy to help. Okay, you know where I am. So hopefully this helps you out with the remix, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so bye.